Hello and welcome to this video on mushrooms. Mushrooms are a fungus that we treat more like a fruit or vegetable. It also happens to grow like a parasite in some cases. It can be the size of a whale or bigger. These and other features of mushrooms are what make it the weird child in the fungi kingdom. Mushrooms are a fungus. This is the same thing as yeast, but looks and behaves significantly different in many ways. The mushroom you might think of is actually the spore-bearing body. That is the reproductive organ of the fungus that is the mushroom as a whole. It's essentially the same thing as what a pomegranate is. The seeds inside are what it's trying to make, not the fruit on the outside. Mushrooms are weird in that they have a body that is made up of many small parts that look like roots, and they are underground. These are called mycelium. The fact is that you might not even know that mushrooms are present, but for the fruiting bodies that we either eat as food, or in some cases poison. Mushrooms are the largest by size, or at least by two-dimensional size, organism in the world. The largest that we're aware of is called Amarillia Celadips, or the Amelia Oyster. This is found in the Amelia National Forest in the United States. It's thought to be about 2,500 years old, and possibly older again, and it spans somewhere around 8.9 square kilometers. While this outlier is huge, and not all are this size or age, it's certainly by no means not out of the realm of reason. Many can grow to be kilometers across. Mushrooms are a combination of multi-cell organism and single-cell organism in many ways, and that's why they can get to this huge size. They also happen to feed on the dead and sometimes living bodies of organisms like trees and recently deceased insects, and in some particularly morbid cases, more complicated animals, let's say. The majority of the organism is multicellular, but in the same way that the human reproductive system is single-celled, so is that of a mushroom. Theirs involves just one spore cell. Fungi are notably different from other living things by the type of cell wall, and it's made from chitin that they have surrounding each of their cells. While it is true that some organisms will have cell walls, they often also have a membrane. But mushrooms just have the cell wall. Mushrooms go through distinct stages. It begins with a spore landing. From here it starts to grow and it develops into mycelium. This is a multicellular part of the mushroom. It's also the unseen part of the mushroom that provides water and nutrition to the whole of it. Once this is established and the right environmental conditions are met, it forms hyphae. These hyphae grow together and form the, let's say, sexual element of it, and you get one of each kind of sex element necessary for mushrooms. These in turn lead to primordial fruiting bodies. These grow into mushrooms as we know them on the surface of the soil. The mushroom fruiting body then releases spores that start the cycle all over again. You can find a few examples of mushroom species that have spread to basically everywhere on the Earth, barring Antarctica. Some notable examples, although admittedly not for that reason, are the bleeding tooth fungus, or Hydinalum pecci. It is a rather uncomfortable looking mushroom. What you see here is actually bits of sap coming out of it due to water pressure building up underneath it, and it's why you often see this either very early in the morning or after recent rain. Another name given to this mushroom is the strawberries and cream mushroom, which is at least somewhat more appealing. The mushroom's appearance gets somewhat more uncomfortable when you look underneath it and find that it has little protrusions that look like teeth, and these are what release the spores. It has an disagreeable odor according to some. Next is the lion's mane, or Heresium Aeronauticis. The lion's mane will only grow on decaying trees, but it's found throughout North America, Europe, and Asia. Where it gets somewhat unique is that not only will it grow only on decaying trees, but only certain species. Another is the devil's finger, and its technical name is Clathrus archieri. It's obviously going to have to come from somewhere interesting, and to no one's surprise, hopefully, it's Australia and New Zealand. The mushroom looks like it should be involved in some sort of satanic ritual, and it will nearly always grow with between 4 and 8 tentacle-like growths that will always be blood red. It has a smell that is not that far off rotting flesh. There are also a vast majority of mushrooms across the world that glow in the dark. These are generally put under the category of bioluminescent mushrooms. You'll mostly find them in Asia, Europe, Australia, and North America, but there are a few exceptions again. For the most part, why they glow isn't exactly clear. It's known that it will attract insects and other animals, and it's thought from this that the animals and insects that have been attracted will pick up the fungal spores and carry them to somewhere more sheltered where they can spread and live on. Generally speaking, in the locations where it's more common, the environment's not exactly hospitable, and so this makes sense as a survival mechanism. The final example is called the wood ear, or Orachellia judae. These mushrooms are, let's say, unique in that not only do they grow on the dead wood of trees, but also the still living host. You'll find this particular species growing on the dead and living ash, spindle, and beech trees, largely when they're more present in big groups, although they do occur on individual older trees. The species as a whole gets their name from not only their appearance, but texture, which is both looking like an ear and having a almost leather-like texture to it. Mushrooms are considered one of the most advanced species of fungi. That's not only because of their very complex reproductive cycle, but also because of their whole organism biology, their reproductive cycle, and the variety of environments and conditions under which they survive. We've mentioned some of the most exotic and interesting varieties and species of mushroom, but there are many more out there, and some have some very exciting and interesting toxicities to them. Others have very interesting appearances. Some survive in remarkable conditions, and others again simply taste great. Mushrooms are nature's weird child. They look weird, they behave weird, they eat weird things, and unlike vegans, they won't tell you about it. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions that you have below.